we're going to start with Module 1 and our Intro to Qualitative Theory. Qualitative procedures typically demonstrate a different approach to scholarly inquiry than the methods of quantitative research that you might be used to. Qualitative inquiry employs different philosophical assumptions, different strategies of inquiry, and methods of data collection, analysis, and interpretation. Although the processes are similar, qualitative procedures rely on text and image data and have unique steps in the data analysis process, and they also draw on diverse strategies in the inquiry. In this course, one of the things that you'll learn is that qualitative methods are not inferior to quantitative methods. We just have a difference in data sets. In quantitative methods, you're looking at a much more hard set of data that typically includes statistics. In qualitative methods, we deal with data that's softer. And after taking this class and using qualitative methods, you will begin to understand the importance and the empirical value of using qualitative methods for your research. A lot of students tell me that they are told out in the real world that qualitative methods are inferior. One of the goals of this class, and for me personally, is to help you to get rid of the prejudice and recognize the value of qualitative research. I think by the time that you finish the course, you'll realize that it is valuable and requires just as much work, if not more, than a quantitative research methodology. So the goals for this week are to review the nature, the niche, and the value of qualitative inquiry, to analyze how different strategic themes impact the nature of qualitative studies, and to compare and contrast the different strategic principles to evaluate the best choices for your topic of interest. So let's talk about the characteristics of qualitative research as opposed to the more quantitative version that you might be used to. This list captures both traditional perspectives and the newer advocacy, participatory, and self-reflective perspectives of the qualitative inquiry. The first thing we want to talk about is the natural setting. Qualitative researchers tend to collect data in the field at the site where participants experience the issue or the problem under study. They don't really bring the individuals into a lab or a contrived situation to study them, nor do they typically send out instruments for individuals to complete. This close-up information gathered by actually talking directly to people and seeing how they behave and act within their context is one of the major characteristics of qualitative research. In the natural setting, the researchers have face-to-face interaction over time. The next component is that the researcher is a key instrument. The researcher is the instrument. Qualitative researchers collect data themselves through examining documents, observing behavior, or interviewing participants. They may use a protocol or an instrument for collecting data, but the researchers are the ones who are actually gathering the information. They do not tend to rely on questionnaires or instruments developed by other researchers. There's also multiple sources of data that are collected. Qualitative researchers typically gather multiple forms of data, such as interviews, observations, documents. They don't really rely on just one data source. Then the researchers review all of the data, make sense of it, and organize it into categories or themes that cut across all of the data sources. This also includes inductive data analysis. So qualitative researchers build their patterns, categories, and themes from the bottom up by organizing the data into increasingly more abstract units of information. This inductive process illustrates working back and forth between the themes in the database until the researchers have established a comprehensive set of themes. They may also actually go back to collaborating with the participants interactively to make sure that the participants have a chance to shape the abstractions that emerge from the process to make sure that they're relevant and they're really there. They also engage in participant meaning. In the entire qualitative research process, the researcher keeps a focus on learning the meaning that the participants hold about the particular problem or issue, not the meaning that the researchers bring to the research or that the writers express in the literature. It also includes the notion of emergent design. The research process for qualitative researchers is emergent. This means that the initial plan for research cannot be tightly prescribed, and all the phases of the process may change or shift after the researcher enters the field and begins to collect the data. For example, the questions might change, the forms of data collection might shift, the individuals studied in the sites might be modified, and the idea behind this qualitative researcher is to really learn about the problem or issue from the participants and address the research to attain that information. It also develops through interpretation. Qualitative research is a form of interpretive inquiry in which researchers make an interpretation of what they see, hear, and understand. Therefore, their interpretations cannot be separated from their own backgrounds, history, context, and prior understandings. After the research report is issued, the readers then make an interpretation as well as the participants, offering yet another interpretation of the study. With the readers, the participants, and the researchers all making the interpretations, it's apparent how multiple views of a problem can emerge. One of the first types of qualitative inquiry that we'll be dealing with is called the ethnography. As you'll notice, most of the different types of qualitative research have different disciplinary roots, and they address core questions that allow us to understand what type of information we're going to be assessing or looking at. So the first is the ethnography, in which its disciplinary roots are from anthropology. The core questions it tends to address are what is the culture of this group of people, and how does the culture then explain their perspectives and behaviors. The next method of qualitative research we'll be talking about is grounded theory. It finds its roots in the social sciences methodology. It basically answers the questions as to what theory, grounded in the fieldwork, emerges from the systematic comparative analysis so as to explain what is being observed. One of my favorite types of qualitative research is the phenomenology. It's grounded in the philosophical framework. It works to describe and answer the question, what is the meaning, structure, and essence of the lived experience of this phenomenon for this person or for this group of people? And I think that you will probably enjoy this one as much as I do. Another method of qualitative inquiry is social constructivism, also known as just constructivism. It comes from the disciplinary roots of sociology and answers the questions, how have people in this setting constructed their reality? What do they perceive as real? And what are the consequences of what is perceived as real? A lot of times you hear talk about the social construction of reality theory, and that's essentially what this is based on. We'll also be touching on the framework of systems theory, which has its roots in many different disciplines and answers the questions how and why does the system function as it does, and also what are the system's boundaries, the interrelationships, and how do these affect perspectives about how and why the system functions as it does. The last type of qualitative inquiry that we'll be talking about today is your narrative inquiry. This is based in the social sciences. It's also found in literary fiction and literary nonfiction roots. It answers the questions, how can this narrative be interpreted to understand and illuminate life and culture that created it? What does this narrative story reveal about the person and the world from which it came? And this is also a fun method of inquiry if you like the literary arts and like what the textual base and the narrative has to say about that particular life and culture. Thanks for listening.